welcome to another episode of Addicted to Business. Today it's my huge honor to welcome Mr. Joe Pulizzi to the podcast. Hello, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for having me. It's good to chat.
No problem. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, no episode would be complete without my good friend and co-host, Mr. Stokely Howard. Hello, Stokely.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Nath. Pleasure to be here again.
So for those that don't know, Joe, content marketing speaker, strategist, author, and entrepreneur. Really keen to find out more about you, Joe, and your journey. So having written 7 books, founded multiple startups, and now with your charity work, which I'm really keen to talk about, where you're helping children with speech therapy. Before we get into all of that, just tell us a little bit more about you, Joe. How did it all start?
Oh, geez. Where do you start? Thank you, by the way. Where do you start? I started in publishing. I started in the media business in 2000. So it's been over 20 years now, and started to learn that, how do companies most effectively communicate today? And it's not through advertising, and it's through, creating content on a consistent basis. So I was able to, instead of selling advertising programs to a bunch of big companies out there, I was able to go in and start helping them with company magazines. Like we did a magazine for Microsoft and a bunch of other B2B companies. And then as that evolved into getting found on Google and social media, started to do those kind of programs, working on webinars. And so I was really lucky in the early 2000s being able to work with companies that were basically testing out content marketing programs. And then just, got the inspiration to start my own business. And, later in the 2007, 8, 9, built what became Content Marketing Institute and just started it like we do content marketing, how to build a loyal audience, create consistent content over time to a targeted niche area. And then once you build that audience, then monetize it in multiple ways. And, the rest is history. But I fell in love with the best kind of marketing. And I think the best kind of marketing is the kind that you don't sell, that you're just educating, that you just find a target audience, figure out what their problem is, and deliver information to that problem every day if you can.
Such an interesting story, Joe. I'm sure there's much more to it than what you just summarized.
It depends on where you want to go, right? I mean, we can take it anywhere you want.
We want it raw. We want the emotion. We want the roller coaster.
Yeah. Oh, I'll give you all that. Yeah. You want all the failures and the mistakes? We can start there.
That's where people learn from, right?
Let's just touch upon that there. You mentioned about mistakes, and this isn't one of the questions that we went into, but we've got a bit of a reputation on this show of asking the difficult questions. What has been the biggest mistake, Joe, in all that time?
Biggest mistake is easy for me. There's been so many, but the biggest one, I started what became Content Marketing Institute in 2007, but I started with the idea of leading with a product. And it was sort of like the eHarmony for content marketing. I was trying to build a matching service online for companies that needed content and journalists and agencies that offered content, and we would match them up online. I thought it was the greatest product ever. Like I'm so in love with this product. This is the best thing. This is absolutely going to work. And that was the big mistake. I fell in love with the product. And luckily in 2009, we were out of money. I was losing all kinds of money, and I was actually starting to look for a job. So this is 2 years into starting the business. I'm like, this is done. I'm never going to make it. I'm a complete loser. This is not going to work. I actually had to start, looking on LinkedIn and sending out resumes without anybody knowing that I'm actually looking for a job. And then I took a couple weeks off while I was feeling sorry for myself. And I started to go through my emails where I was getting blog subscriber comments and just emails from subscribers. And the products they were asking for were right there. And so while I'm in love with this matching service that was a horrible financial model, they're saying, Joe, is there any training available for content marketing? Joe, are there any international events that I can go to meet other content marketers? And they're telling me the products that they need that don't exist right now. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. I was ignoring all these blog subscribers for so long because I'm focused on selling this over here. Well, finally I said, okay. And then, I got a cocktail napkin out. So I was doing a lot of drinking at the time. So I actually wrote down on a cocktail napkin. I said, okay, we're going to scrap this other business that nobody really wants to pay for. And we said, okay, we're going to create the leading online destination for content marketing to help solve these people's problems on an ongoing basis. We're going to create the largest in-person event for content marketing, which became Content Marketing World. And we're going to create the leading trade magazine, print magazine for content marketing, which became Chief Content Officer Magazine. And we were able to do those three things in the next couple of years. But so it was a quick turnaround because I got my head out of my ass.
Well, that's the thing, right?
It started to listen to the audience that were telling me exactly what to create. And I was in la la land focusing on this product that nobody wanted.
And that's the key takeaway for anyone listening, is actually that moment of clarity came when you stepped back and started to remove the emotion and I guess the love for what you thought was the best thing. Because actually it doesn't matter what you think, it matters what your audience thinks. And the sooner you can understand that, the better.
You're exactly right. And the other thing I realized, and that's why I wrote a book about it called Content Inc. in 2015, I realized that the best way, the least risky way for somebody to launch a business is to first build an audience. And then once you build a loyal audience, you could pretty much sell them whatever you want based on what their problems are. And so that's where I've been interviewing hundreds of companies from all over the world on them doing just that. They don't launch with a product or service. They launch by building an audience on wherever, a blog, video series, Facebook, Instagram. And then once they build that audience, they launch all kinds of products and services, which I think that's my favorite business model on the planet, because it's not capital intensive and you don't have to guess. You don't have to guess at what products they're going to buy. They will absolutely tell you what they're going to buy.
It's right there in front of you, right?
Yep.
So, Joe, I'm interested to know a little bit more about content marketing. From my view, content marketing is the fastest growing internet marketing industry. Yep. Tell us more about the Content Marketing Institute you founded and then sold, I believe, back in 2016. Yep. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Started it, based on the story I just told you, started the business in 2007, morphed that into Content Marketing Institute in 2010, sold it in 2016. And basically, the formal definition of content marketing is I'm a company or an individual. I'm going to create valuable and relevant content on a consistent basis to a targeted audience over a period of time. And if I do that, hopefully I will maintain or change some type of behavior, i.e. revenue. So that's content marketing. The idea of content marketing is all about building an audience first and monetizing second. So that could be, I want to I'm TD Ameritrade and I'm going to send a magazine to a bunch of our traders. And if I do that consistently and educate them over a period of time, they will trade more. And they actually have a magazine called Think Money that does that. So that's a corporate example. Like for us, it was, I'm going to blog 3 times a week. I'm going to do that for 18 months. I'm going to build an email newsletter subscription list based on that blog of over 200,000 people. And then once I do that, I can launch 13 different revenue options. You can actually create new revenue, new products and services, or you can make existing products and services that you have better, cross sales, better yield, whatever the case is. Nobody, when we started in 2010, it was called custom publishing, custom media. I mean, the art of custom content marketing has been around for hundreds of years, but it wasn't formalized in a corporate standpoint. I mean, when I would go in and talk to enterprises and I'm looking for the content marketing team, it was the conference team or the print magazine team or the newsletter team. And they were down the hall, down the stairs by the boiler room. You could barely find them. They got no respect. Nobody even knew they existed in an organization. Well, now they're the webinar team and the podcast team and the video team and the social team, still siloed. So we have some things to work on, but that's what we're seeing in companies. So I think that a small company, this could be your entire marketing effort. And to a large company, it's usually something like a conference team or a podcast team or something like that.
So really interesting that content marketing is going for that kind of serve, not sell option, where it is just about educating the audience and paying it forwards and being as valuable as possible and becoming a resource so that at the right time, you can then turn that into some kind of income.
Exactly. I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to advertise and interrupt your customers, or do you want to give them information that's going to help them live a better life or get a better job? I mean, you have a choice. Now, advertising can reap rewards right away. If you're doing content marketing, It takes a long time. I mean, you were investing, you're trying to create a long-term asset in your organization. So it might take 6, 9, 12 months. That's why in a lot of large enterprises, they get killed because you get a new chief marketing officer that comes in and says, well, that thing hasn't panned out yet. I'm going to kill that, blog project or podcast because we need revenue now. And you're only focused on quarterly numbers. Well, if you're a patient company like an Amazon and you say, look, we're willing to wait a year and a half, 2 years to build an asset where we can do amazing things and have that asset grow over time, then content marketing is for you.
So, Joe, what size did the community get to before you decided to exit in terms of subscribers or members?
Before and exit in 2016?
Yeah.
It was, okay, so basically we were considered a small media company. Most of our revenues came in through in-person events like, Content Marketing World, our annual event we had in Cleveland, Ohio. And I had a number. So when I launched the business as an entrepreneur, I always had a number that I always wanted to sell. Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. I always wanted to have, at the end of the day, $15 million. That was my goal. I'm like, I want $15 million. I think that'll take care of my family and my kids forever and financially free and whatever. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do to get to that $15 million? And so we believed that we needed to get a business that was at least $10 million in revenue and throwing off at least $2 million in profit per year to get to after-tax numbers of the $15 million number. So that's when we got to 2015. My wife and I co-owned the business. We got to 2015 and we were like at $9 million in revenue and almost $2 million in profit. And I said, okay, now's the time. And we went out and did an LOI, letter of intent, out to 4 companies that I had on a list for a long time. And I said, okay, we're keeping this quiet. Please keep it confidential. But I'm putting the company up for sale. And I knew at that point I could get the multiples and get the number in order to hit that 15. So, I mean, this was a 6-year plan in the making that finally came to fruition in 2016.
For sure. I mean, we had a guest on another show, Gary Mansell, who followed a similar principle in terms of he almost cherry-picked the 3 or 4 he took it to and then knew that they would almost bargain each other off or whatever. Did they know that you'd gone to those other 4, or was it very much
they probably did, but that method that you're talking about, Gary talked about, that's the best method. Instead of going out to the market and saying, okay, I'm for sale, we did, I did research over a long period of time. I knew there were 4 to 6 companies that would ultimately buy us. And when I first started in 2011, 2012, I didn't have contacts at those companies. So for the next 3 years, I worked to get contacts at those companies. I went to trade shows and I went to events so I could meet the CEOs, sit down with them and have coffee, and took meetings so that by the time I sent the letter of intent out in 2015, we were friends. They knew me. And I said, here you go. I know you've been interested in this. Well, here it is. And yes, so I'm sure there was a little, inside information going back and forth. People knew who I sent it to, but I kept the list really, really small, and it worked out well because, it's just so much better going, to a targeted list than open it up for everyone. And who knows, right? A lot of things could happen. I didn't want the marketplace to know that we were putting ourselves up for sale.
For sure. And so, Joe, it would be wrong of me not to ask. Stokely and I were doing some research, 400 locations you've spoken across 16 countries, all around content marketing. For those listening today, perhaps we're going to have some people, right, that know content marketing, that already use content marketing. Sure. We're going to have some people that won't even know where to start with content marketing. So for those that are a little bit unclear about where to start, do you have a kind of formula or a few pillars that you say, when you're doing content, this is the place to begin?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it doesn't start with, what am I going to produce? Like, is it going to be a blog or a podcast? That's later. The first thing is, it's all about strategy. Number one is who your audience. It's all about the audience. Who's your audience? Who are you trying to target? Is it your customer database? Maybe you're not in business yet. Is it somebody that lives in a certain part of the country? Is it somebody that buys certain things? It's somebody that has very specific problems. Like if you're a farmer and you're trying to learn how to operationalize the farm better, well, John Deere is going to send you certain technology information to do that better. That's how they do content marketing. So figure out who the audience is and what their informational needs are. What are their problems? What keeps them up at night? That's the start. Then on the other side, you go to, okay, well, what do I have to tell them? What's the stories? Do I have the expertise in my company or personally the information to deliver something of value to them? So that's called the sweet spot. And then you go one level down into what we call the content tilt. What is your area of differentiation that you're going to break through all the clutter out there? Because God knows how much content there is out there. Yeah. How are you going to break through that? You have to start really small, focus on a really interesting niche that you can break through all that clutter. So, and that's what we, use us as an example for Content Marketing Institute. Nobody called it content marketing. We took this thing called custom publishing, custom media, and we said, it's now content marketing. We gave it a complete facelift. That was our differentiation into the marketplace. Another way is, not a lot of enterprises were getting education on this practice area. So we're going to target enterprises with this practice area. So that's how you start. Then once you figure out what that differentiation is, that content tilt to that particular audience, then you can select one thing that you can do really well. Is it a blog? Is it an event series? Is it an Instagram story? Is it something on TikTok? I don't care what it is, but you should start with one thing. We call that building the base. And where a lot of companies go wrong is they're like, oh, we've got to spread this out everywhere on the web. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. That does not work until you have some base, a great e-newsletter, a great video series. If you look at all the great YouTubers out there, they start with just a YouTube channel. Then once they create a good following, a lot of subscribers on their YouTube, then they'll say, okay, now I'm going to diversify and do an e-newsletter. Now I'm going to diversify and do an Instagram channel. So that's, by the way, this is media business 101. This is how every great media company is started. They start by doing one thing really well. They become master of that thing over a long period of time. And then once they do, they land revenue and diversify. So start small, find your niche.
Love that. Love that. Joe, I'm really interested to know, it might sound like quite a simple question, but people who know you often see you in the color orange. Why is that?
Yeah, I have it today. I have lots of orange around. So, okay, this is a long story. I'm going to keep it as short as I can because we're on some time. When I started the business in 2007, our company colors were orange and gray. And I'm a first-time entrepreneur. I didn't know. And I'm like, okay, I bought a bunch of shirts that were orange. I'm like, I think that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm on brand. And when I started to do my videos and I took, formal pictures of me on the website, everything was in an orange shirt. And as more and more content got out there and I'm doing more videos and doing more speeches online, I've always have an orange shirt on. I didn't think anything of it. I just said, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So luckily I get called from an agency in Brussels, Belgium. And because I'd never been outside the United States before that time. And they called up and they said, Joe, we like your book. We like what you're doing online. Would you come over and give a speech on content marketing? I said, absolutely. They said, the only problem is we need you to wear a black tuxedo. And I said, I'll wear whatever you want. Are you paying me to come over? I'll whatever you want me to wear, I'll wear it. So I come over. I don't wear, I don't wear my clothes. They had a attire ready for me to go. I did my speech with my black tux. I came off stage. I've never been here before. I've never met any of these people in the audience. I had 3 people come up to me and ask me why I was not wearing orange. And I'm looking at them like, what? I'm not, what do you mean I'm not wearing? And they said, every time we've seen you in every picture anywhere, you're wearing orange. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's a business advantage that I've created. I branded myself as orange. So once I realized that was a thing and people started to recognize me through orange, I went all in. I wear orange everywhere, still do, can't get around it. You go into my closet and all you'll see are orange things. I have people that throughout the years have sent me like everything orange. I got an orange little Buddha. I've got orange glass. I've got orange, and everything around this office is orange because people send it to me. And I really believe that's helped the business. And so my take is, if you're an entrepreneur, you take everything that you can at your advantage if you can do it. And one of those things are brand yourself really well. And I did that through a color.
I love this story. And so back to business, Joe.
Nathan's going for pink, by the way.
Hey, that works. Whatever.
It's a treat. So, Joe, I'm really keen to understand, if you could go back to an 18-year-old version of yourself with the knowledge that you've got now, what would you do differently and what would you tell yourself?
I would buy Apple and Amazon stock. That's what I would do.
In the world of content marketing.
Right, in the world of content marketing. It's hard to say. I'm sure. I know you guys ask this question a lot, but it's hard to say because, I learned through the failures is when I learned the business model that would actually work. But I probably would have told myself, look, first of all, do what you love. Because if you do that, you will find ways to make money through that. The second thing is stick to something and have patience. So, in 2009, I almost gave up. I was close. I had the right idea. I started the blog. I was blogging 3 times a week. I started the email newsletter, but I had the revenue wrong. And I didn't listen to my customers. So that would be patient. And the third thing is that figure out a way, and I call them listening posts. Figure out a way where you can get as much information from your audience as often as possible. So I have a newsletter right now called the Random Newsletter. And in the newsletter, I always write, what do you think about this? Give me what? And so in the last newsletter, I've had 30 or 40 people email me, okay, this is what I think. And then I email them back and I'm like, hey, I'm working on the book right now. What's the one thing that you would really like to see in the book? They're telling me exactly what I should put in the new version of my book. So that, if you just keep your ears open, good things happen. So listen to your audience.
That's key, isn't it? Is listen most of the time, and the answers are there right in front of you. You just have
Absolutely.
to. There's a difference between. I will say there's a difference between listening and actually listening.
Yeah, pretend listening so you get something versus.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about your charity endeavors, and you're doing some extraordinary work. So congratulations on that. With children struggling with speech. Tell us a little bit more about that, about the reasons behind that, and why you're, going on this endeavor.
Yeah, we started. My wife and I started a nonprofit called Orange Effect Foundation, and we fundraise to help children who have speech disorders get funding for speech therapy. And all you need to know is there's a lot of kids out there that need speech therapy and either don't have insurance or can't afford it, so they go without. So I'm a big believer in early intervention speech therapy. And the reason is, my oldest son, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when he was 2 years old. He couldn't speak at all by the time he was 3. And, basically just grunts and pointing and a lot of nonverbals. And, I had to go through intense speech and play therapy so that by the time he was 8 or 9 years old, he could go to regular school and not have a tutor. The transformation that I saw in him because of speech therapy was amazing. And then as you get into it, you realize, oh my God, there's so many kids out there like my son that didn't get speech therapy and they're not able to communicate normally and they're very frustrated with it. And it's not fair because the resources are out there, but they just can't afford them. So that's the reason why. We spend all of our nonprofit time trying to raise as much money for those kids. And I think we've got 230 kids right now on grants, which is, wow. There's so much more need out there. It's a good start. So I'm happy. We're affecting a lot of kids' lives and families in a positive way, but there's a lot more need out there. So, we're trying.
Good for you, man. Good for you. It's 230 kids that didn't have that before. So that's better than nothing. That's great work.
What's going on, Joe? I love it.
Hey man, it's there's a lot of great charities out there, right? I'm sure you guys have things that you support. Everyone supports something. This is something that was close to my heart that I can see the impact right away. And when I can see one of our kids that, let's say last year, and then I see them 12 months later and they can smile and communicate and they're not as frustrated, and the impact that it has on not only the family but the rest of their lives. I want to see more of these kids in regular school so they can be as normal as they want to be, right? Whatever normal is. They just want to communicate, and I don't want to see them frustrated. And they can do anything they want, but sometimes they just need to learn how to communicate, and they don't have that wired into their brains yet. So
that's incredible. John, I'm looking around your office here, and I'm seeing an Albert Einstein looking through the window. Some other bits and pieces as well. I'm keen to the real thing I want to ask is tell us a bit more about the book that's very strategically placed, The Will to Die.
Oh yeah.
But before we dive in,
you saw that? I didn't know you saw that.
I know. I'm sure it didn't mean to be that. But before I do, I just wonder what's with Einstein looking through the window.
That's from my. We were talking about 20 years ago. That's from Penton Media, my first job. So they did a whole campaign on thinking differently, Albert Einstein. It didn't work out so well for the company, but I love the poster. Anyway, so I got baseball. Baseball, Star Wars. I've got John Wick over here. I'm a big John Wick fan.
Nice. The main question was The Will to Die. Tell us more about this. Your latest book?
This is my latest. Yeah, it's my latest book. First fiction. So I've got I have 6 other books in that are nonfiction, and I'm working on the new version of Content Inc.
So why the move to fiction? And tell us a little bit more about it.
So as you know, I sold the company.
Yep.
2018. So I worked at Content Marketing Institute formally until the end of 2017.
Okay.
So 2018, I'm like, what am I going to do? And I said, I'm taking a sabbatical year. So I told everybody I'm taking off. I'm not doing anything. And one day I was talking with my wife, and I don't know why I asked her. I'm like, why did you never read? Because she never read any of my marketing books except for the acknowledgments page. That's the only, she just wanted to say, okay, did you say anything about me? And that's all she would read. And I said, why didn't you ever read any of my books? And she said, well, if you wrote something interesting, I would read it. Oh. I love her. She's great. And I said, all right. So I took that as a challenge, and she likes mysteries and thrillers. So I said, all right, that was my new goal was I'm going to write you a book that you will love. So I started dabbling in 2018 with the book, finished it in 2019. The main character is a marketing guy. It's a marketing guy that his father passes away, who runs a funeral home, and he has to go take over the funeral home. So I come from a funeral home business. I come from a marketing business. So I put those two together in a mystery thriller. And so I wrote it out. I gave it to my wife, and she read it and she loved it. And I said, okay, well, maybe it's good enough to publish. I went through the publishing process, and we released it in March of 2020. And we were on a couple Amazon bestseller lists for a couple weeks and sold a bunch of copies, and it's all good, man.
Fantastic. Love it. I love it. Your wife was like, you've never written anything like interesting.
Hey, I don't know. It's
everyone needs their why, right?
Yeah. You need that challenge, right? So it's it's the hardest thing I ever had to do career-wise. If you had me, you said, Joe, give me a marketing speech, I give you a marketing speech. Joe, I need a blog post on content marketing. I need a book, ebook. I can, write you that stuff. Say, write me a 100,000 word fiction novel, create the whole story from scratch. That's a difficult thing. And I'm just happy that I actually published it, because I know a lot of my friends, they have a novel in their drawer that they just never done anything with. So anybody out there that you're working on a novel, just get it done. It's never going to be perfect. Just do it, get it done if that's a goal, and you see what happens from there.
How many books have you wrote now, Joe?
So I've got 7 books, and I'm working on number 8, which is another version of my 2015 book, Content Inc.
Gosh, busy at writing.
It's just trying to be helpful, just trying
Yeah.
and do things that I enjoy. So there we go.
I love that. I love that. Nathan and I, we often talk about mentorship and inspiring people and our inspiration. And we both are very, advocates of having mentors and, learning from people. Do you have anyone that's helped shape your journey like that?
I mean, I've got a list of people. It's been, yeah. I mean, when I first started in publishing, there were two gentlemen, Jeff Forker and Jim McDermott. I don't know why they did it, but they said they sort of took me under their wing and they taught me the publishing business
Yeah.
and learning the publishing business. That's basically that's how Content Marketing Institute happened. I learned media. Second, I learned that new marketing is publishing. I'm like, oh my God, this is just fantastic. And my other mentor, I don't know if you're familiar with Don Schultz. Don Schultz is known as the father of integrated marketing communications. Jim McDermott, my one mentor, said, you have to meet Don Schultz. And I didn't know Don Schultz and Don didn't know me. And I'm like, well, how do I get a meeting with Don Schultz? I actually called him out of the blue. This is back in 2003, 2004. And I said, Don, you don't know me from Adam, but I would like to come to Chicago. He taught at Northwestern University. I said, I will buy you dinner. I just would like an hour of your time to pick your brain. And he said, okay, I'm available on this date. I want to go to Gibson Steakhouse on Rush Street in Chicago, and you be there. And that was it. And he became a lifelong mentor. I touch base with him all the time. He was a keynote speaker at Content Marketing World in 2013. And I guess my learning from that is don't be afraid to ask. Like if there's somebody out there that you think could really help you, the worst thing you can get is no if you go ask them. And I asked Don for help, and either he was in a good mood or he liked my tenacity or whatever. And he said, okay, or maybe he just wanted a steak. Who knows? A nice steak.
Maybe a combination of all of those factors, I think.
It was great. So yeah, mentors, and many more mentors than that, but those are the three that I remember.
Food works, right?
Always,
people love being more food.
Always.
So, Joe, I'm keen to understand from you, based on your experience and knowledge and context, what do you think the future of content marketing looks like in the next 3 to 5 years? How do you think it's going to change from what it's been recently?
I wrote a book with Robert Rose in 2017 called Killing Marketing. And the whole idea behind it was that the marketing department would become a profit center. And I believe that's happening, and it happens because of content marketing. So instead of marketing as an expense or marketing mostly focused on advertising and interruption, marketing will continue to be focused on building audiences across the enterprise. And then we monetize those audiences in all different kinds of ways. Yes, by selling current products and services, also by creating new products and services based on those audiences. And yes, actually charging for direct content experiences just like a media company would. So I think that a media model and the marketing model for product and service companies is exactly the same. And we're starting to see that. And what you'll see over the next 12, 18, 24 months is a lot of big brands out there will start buying media companies. I mean, it's already happened. L'Oreal bought makeup.com. HubSpot went out there and bought a sales blog. I mean, it's happening in little spits all over the place, but you'll start to see a real effort where, especially during the pandemic, you've got media companies. There's a media company for sale every week now going bankrupt, and these big brands have all the money now. I mean, during the pandemic, the big companies became bigger, more flushed with cash. They'll start buying these media companies. And they basically, you'll see every company has a product and service line and a media company. It's just like Red Bull does. It's going to be, but every company is going to do this.
I completely agree. You can see it everywhere now.
Yeah.
So the final question from me, Joe, is what 3 things must you always think about and consider when writing? I don't know whether the word is good or killer, but killer content. Is there 3 things that you can sort of start from if someone hasn't done it before?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're creating any kind of content and you want it to resonate, get as specific an audience in mind as possible. My friend Ann Hanley, she's got a great newsletter. She actually writes to one of her subscribers every week. Like she has a subscriber in mind. All right, that's Jessica. Jessica's dealing with this. I'm going to write to Jessica. I mean, a lot of people will say, what's your buyer persona? But I think you need to get more specific than that. Really focus on those pain points of the audience. So that's the one. The second thing is, this is a really good time to give your permission to start killing some things. Like when we go in enterprises, I mean, I'd go do consulting. They'd have 14, 16, 18 different things they're doing. They're on every social media channel. They're doing 6 blogs and 5 podcasts and virtual events, and they do all of them mediocre. Like none of them's great. It's just like everything's so-so. And I would rather them take those 14, 16, 18 things you're doing and do 1 to 2 things really great. So that's what I would like to see. So if you really want to create killer content, the best content in your industry, focus on a very specific audience and do less. Do more with less and be great at a few things, like the podcast video cast you guys are doing, do that great. You don't have to have, you don't have to have 17 other things going on. You don't have to be on TikTok. You don't have to do all these things. Just do 1 or 2 things really great, build your audience, and then you diversify from there.
Joe, I love it. And what a great note to finish on. For those that are listening, I hope you found it useful. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Joe, once again, a massive thank you for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you, and I really hope to keep in touch. Thank you all. Please can I ask you that if you did enjoy today's episode, remember to go find it on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks again.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.